One. Oh. Thanks for the introduction, Ben. So, today we will talk a little bit about the multi-source inventory. Yep, and I'm a little bit blind, as Ricardo before. So, yeah, that's me. My name is Igor, and I'm core Magento architect, and I'm with Magento for more than 6 years, and I brought a lot of goodness to Magento. And and the MSI is another goodness I'm working on right now currently. So, the multi-source inventory. I believe you're all aware that Magento 1 is a single stock system. So while you have the only warehouse or the only storage where all your physical goods are stored, you're pretty okay to use just Magento. But when you or your merchant stuck with a problem, but actually it's not a problem, it's just a business case when you have several warehouses, you probably need additional system to track your inventory. Let's call that system like ERP. And you need to make a synchronization between the Magento and that ERP system. So in this case, Magento would be the source of trust for the order processing, and that system would be the source of trust for the inventory. And that system will know for sure how many products you have on each particular warehouse. So actually that leads to the extension developers and the guys who make integration, make all of that integration with ERP like custom, because there are no any two similar business processes. That's why any of that integration are pretty custom, and it involves quite a lot of resources to be done and code to be written. That's why actually we would like to introduce the support of the multi-sourcing. So we call the warehouse as a source in Magento. So we would like to introduce the support of the multi-sources on the level of the core. And yeah, so the idea is to provide the management of different sources under the hood of one Magento installation. So like in this particular image, you have different warehouses in each different state. And along with that, we have a single stock which combine all of the goods which are stored across the whole country, for example, like in this case. So actually, like we decided to start working on that project, and we started several times internally. And after that, we realized that we don't have enough resources. And actually that's why at some point of time we decided to proceed to ask help for community, and community start to pay with its own time, start to participate and collaborate and make contribution. Now it's actually the pioneering project which is totally driven by community. So all the developers involved with the project are a community. So that's why it's pretty interesting. And as it's stated in this slide, we are not just introducing new functionality of the multi-sourcing. Actually, at the end point, we would like to refactor and substitute the whole inventory management process we have in the system, because we consider that there are possibilities to improve it. And we have quite a lot of legacy code there, and that code is not pretty, it's not really pretty. So actually, the idea is not just to add new functionality, but improve the existing one, and to have something which we consider like a desired state product. So if you are, for example, just interested in what we are doing there, so the project is totally open. For example, you can go and see the MSI roadmap. It's actually pretty easily Googled. So if you Google just a Magento MSI roadmap, it would be the first page, or just Magento MSI, that would be the first page in your search engine result page. And you see the whole backlog we have for the project. And you are free to contribute. For example, you could say that, hey guys, I believe that this functionality is not important. and this functionality is more important, like store pickup or something like that. And we have voting, we have a discussion, open discussion, and you are in charge to the backlog composition for the project. So now the interesting part. So actually currently backlog consists of 3 milestones, and actually the milestone 1 is supposed to deliver the minimal viable product to the Magenta, and it's going to be released in the next major commercial release of the platform, and actually what it will bring to merchants, what it will bring to developers. So of course, as we will support the multi-sourcing, we will provide the management of the physical sources, and we will provide an ability to combine the sources to particular stock. Also, we're going to improve the checkout performance. Yep, and it's from one point, it couldn't be really like, if you're tracking the presentation, like why improving checkout performance. But I will describe it a little bit later, why and how we will improve checkout performance. But actually, because we will introduce some kind of asynchronous processing that will directly affect the whole checkout performance. So also, we will introduce a totally new import-export. So that would be import-export of the stock data. So currently, one of the problems we have in Magenta that you can import the stock data just in the scope of the product importing. But for example, for big merchants, it's not actually so convenient because, for example, most of them using just 2 different systems integrated with Magenta. The one is a product management system, like a PIM system, which represents the source of truth for the product attributes, media data, etc. And another system is a ERP, which is responsible for the inventory. And actually, the time to live of the data is different because inventory should be updated and synchronized with Magenta much more often than attributes data and the media data. That's why actually we introduce a dedicated import process, which will provide an easy ability to synchronize the data with ERP system with Magenta. Also, we will support the dropshipping, and of course, we will provide the low stock records for all the physical sources, so for warehouse, which would be managed by Magenta. So, and last but not the least, actually that's very important because we now need to spoil the look and feel and the usability for those merchants who are okay to use single stock Magenta. So we would not overcomplicate the admin UI, for example. So it should be, and it would be the same as easy as it is now. So actually that's the base concept, where we have these yellow boxes which represent the sources, aka warehouses, and you have an ability to combine these sources into the stock. So the stock actually represents some virtual aggregation, and the stock after that is assigned to the sales channel. So the sales channel in this case is another extension point. So from the most obvious example of the sales channel in the Magenta world is website. But for example, for big merchants like B2B, for example, you can introduce a customer group as a sales channel. For example, if you will decide to have a dedicated stock, for example, for one of your wholesale client, so and like manage that stock independently out of your all other stock. So here, for example, you can have different physical warehouses in all the cities among the country, and after that you will combine them to the UK, for example, stock, and you will assign that UK stock to the UK website. That's the basic idea. And I'm already mentioning about the checkout, and that we are going to improve the performance of the checkout. So actually, what was one of the issues and with the checkout, and why we have sometimes a bottleneck, especially when we have a high concurrent rates of the checkout at some point of time, especially like during the Cyber Monday, for example. So the problem is LSD, and that's not about the Magenta developers are on LSD, but actually the LSD, if you are from the Magenta world, you are pretty familiar with this term. So LSD stands for the load, save, and delete. So we don't have actually CRUD in Magenta. We have an LSD. So you just load the data, make some update, and save it. So we don't differentiate the update operation and the setting operation. So, and if you are talking about like inventory, we have here two different business operations. The first one is when you would like to set data. For example, during the synchronization with ERP. So the ERP in your case is the source of trust. You get data from the ERP, and what you need just to set the data for your stock item. So despite the fact what's the existing data in the stock item, just you need to get it and override. But another business process we have is the stock deduction. So for example, when we are placing an order and we know that we are buying like 5 items, we just need to deduct that 5 items out of the number of products we have in our stock. So that's actually two totally different operations from the business point of view, but actually as we are limited currently in our APIs, we use the LSD approach for both of them. And actually, like, what happens in the checkout process? That's actually why we need a transactional logic, because we know what products are going to be sold. That's why we allot that product. We allot the stock item for them. We check whether we have enough quantity, and we check whether the existing quantity is higher than the requested quantity to fulfill the order. And after that, we make a deduction, and all of that done in the PHP code. And that's done in the scope of the open transaction. And after we made all of that mathematical stuff, after we made the deduction, we apply and save that updated stock item to the database. So for all of that, we have the open transaction. And if we have the race condition, for example, and the high transactional rate, we stuck with the weight lock on a checkout, because each checkout process is supposed to guarantee that you would not sell more products that you have on your storage. That's one of the problems. So you will see how we're going to solve it. And currently, I will show you the reservation mechanism. We are going, not actually going, we already introduced it, and it exists in the MSI branch. It's not actually merged to the 2.3, but it would be merged soon. So actually the reservation is supposed to answer the problem I just raised. So reservation is supposed to be used when we need to when we need to proceed with the stock deduction. So yeah. And it's very important here that the reservation is append-only mechanism. So we just make a reservation, and that's all. We don't open a transaction, we just put data one by one, sequentially. So ideally, you can even use, so currently we save the reservation in the MySQL table, but possibly you can use Redis queue, for example, and the queue mechanism would work well, because it just append only list of reservation. So let's now consider the example of how we place an order. So for example, we have two physical sources. In our case, that's actually the warehouse in France and the warehouse in Italy. And we combine the stock of these sources to one virtual aggregation, so the U stock. And U stock is now just aggregate the quantities we have on the physical sources. So currently we have 5 items in France and 10 items in Italy. Now we make a sum up all together and gets like 15. That's the total quantity we have for the U stock. And we don't have a reservation. So if you come to, if the customer comes to the website, he would see that the available quantity of items is 15. So at some time, the customer comes to the site and places an order buying 5 products. So what happens with our system? So in this case, we don't check, we don't make any transactional logic regarding whether we have enough products to fulfill that order. We just place, we make that check very quickly, and not in a transaction, and place a reservation. That's all. So actually we made that append only reservation for the -5 to fulfill that order. And we don't update real data. We don't update data for the France source, for the Italy source, neither for EU stock. So actually the index data is still the same. But all we've done is just created a reservation. But when another customer comes to the site and he would like to see what the quantity of the product is available, we take this data from the index, so 15, and apply all the reservations. That's all what happens. So that's pretty simple mathematics. So 15 plus minus 5, we end up with 10 products which are available to be sold. And after that, for example, admin comes to the admin panel, and like the first customer who made an order decided to make a reorder, and because he just thought that five items too much for him, and he decided that he would be okay with just 2 items of that product, and we need to return 3 items back to the stock. What do we do here? We create another reservation. So we don't affect the real index. We don't affect the real sources at this moment. So we just create the reservation, and again, total quantity would be correct because we get the data from the index and apply all the reservations. So it will be 13. And now admin completes order and make a shipping. And that's the time when actually re-index is run. Because that's the time when we have the algorithm, and actually the algorithm is another extension point. So depending on your business case, it could be different one. So in a simplest example, it could be just priority-based algorithm. So you will check from the most priority source whether you can fulfill the order, making delivery from that source, and if not, you go to another source, and so on, so on, so on. In more sophisticated cases, the algorithm could be like more sophisticated. So it could, for example, provide the sources which will guarantee that the shipping will cost less for merchant, for example. So actually that would be like, we call that algorithm like source selection algorithm. So this algorithm is supposed to provide the sources. In another case, in another business scenario, it could provide just the sources from which the delivery time would be fastest. Yeah, and actually after that algorithm run, and actually, you know, because if merchant has a lot of warehouses, that algorithm, processing that algorithm could take time. That's why actually it also happen not during the time of order placement, but at the time of order processing. And so we are not affecting the user experience running that algorithm. So that algorithm takes some time and returns the sources from which we need which should be used to fulfill the order. And so after that, after the algorithm run, we, for example, in this case, decided that we need to fulfill order making and shipping from the France. That's why we deducted 2 items out of the France stock and make a recalculation for the whole index for the EU stock. So now we currently have the 13. And when we finished our reindexation process, currently we need to create a compensational reservation, so +2, which added the last one, just to just to prevent that reservations which currently exist in our queue don't affect the result, because index already fixed one. And after that, again, we can run it asynchronously. We run the reservation cleaning process. And actually, reservation cleaning is pretty straightforward. We just sum up all the reservations for each particular product, and if we end up that we have like 0, like in this case, like -5 + 3 + 2, we end up with 0, we just remove this reservation to prevent overwhelming our system with a lot of reservation created. So, yeah, that's how reservation, the base concept, how does reservation work. And as I mentioned before, so that's about workflow, the project part. So that project is totally open. You can come and see how we work, because now we are trying to apply all the processes, all the best practices we have internally in Magenta, and share it with the community developers. So we have quite a lot of technical guidelines, technical articles you can read and get aware about. We are using the new PHP 7 syntax because Magenta from 2.2 is support just PHP 7 plus, but you don't see a lot of examples of that code currently in Magenta 2 code base, but you can see that code in the MSI. Also, we even use the strict typing for the MSI module. Also, we have a weekly demo, and these demo are recorded and shared in YouTube. So, for example, you can get aware of the project like watching all the previous demo we already recorded and shared. And we have a dedicated Slack channel. So, like more than 100 guys already participated in the project, and so you can be another guy who will join, but not another guy. You can be the guy who joined. So we have a list of links related to the project, and so we're trying to share as much as possible information about how the project gonna evolve, and we even share our prediction when we are going to release MSI. So we are making that burn down and update it after each iteration, and share like whether we are in a good shape, whether we are spoiled in some time, and trying to be as transparent as possible. And that's all. And feel free to join, drop in an email on ngcom@magenta.com. Sorry.